Welcome back to Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence from the Stage, the number one show helping you reach millions of people. So, if you are somebody who is thinking about holding an event and you're like, how am I going to maximize the impact that I can have through making sales, right? Events are the best place to do a high ticket sale, but the sales piece can be really confusing, especially if you are up on stage trying to run the event, trying to hold everybody's energy, and trying to move them. How do you close sales at the back of the room? My guest today runs a business called Wingman Coaching. Um, he helps people specifically close at events. Rudy, how are you doing today?
Hey Steve, doing great, man. Thank you for asking in. Our DBA is actually a virtual event sales team. Make it easier for people to remember, virtualeventsalesteam.com. That's because we specialize specifically in sales teams at events, but over the last 5 years, we've supported over 100 virtual events specifically.
Dude, I
Um,
love that. That's
yeah.
so we can actually talk about the difference between a live in the room event and a virtual event. Maybe we'll unpack that one a little bit. You said you've been doing this just for 5 years or a little bit longer than that, right?
No, I actually been in the business for gosh, since 2014. So I was in the Navy for 10 years. I had a 10-year career in the Navy. I went to the Naval Academy, became an officer. Went to flight school, flew 2 deployments. Had that whole life chapter of my life. Left the Navy in 2014, and then went to work for a mentor. Built my mentor's coaching program on the back end, helped them scale from about 1.5 million to over $7 million a year, and just on about 2 years, realized I had a skill for it, and then designed a team to help other people do the same thing. And in that process, we realized that we had especially a great niche and strength when it came to live events because we helped that mentor scale from a it was like a $300,000 event to a $700,000 event to a $2.1 million event, year over year. I'm like, wow, there's like an art and a science to enrollment at events. And again, we went and we did it for dozens of owners. And in the last 10 years, we supported over 10,000 people enrolling into coaching, education, and mastermind type program offerings. And the majority of that through live events. So that's kind of a little bit of the context and the background of kind of what brings us here today.
That is awesome. I know we chatted and we have a similar roadmap. I ended up starting my business in 2012, 2013 and slowly grew all through live events, which I absolutely love. I think it is the best way to influence and impact people and then have them move forward with something that's really going to support their lives over a 6 month, 1 year period. So we're going to jump into the sales piece of this specifically. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm going to stand up on stage and I'm a really good speaker and I'm just going to sell and it's going to work, please don't go into this with a field of dreams mentality. There is a very specific way that this happens. Rudy just laid that out. He helped his mentor grow year over year. We've helped clients grow year over year as well. We're going to jump into the nuts and bolts of sales. So, first off, when you start working with somebody, or maybe through the person that you helped your mentor, how did you start to grow sales specifically? And how is it different at a live event versus let's say, like just a booked sales call?
There's several questions in there. I'm going to have
Yeah.
kind of us do one at a time. How do we grow sales for the mentor? The saying goes necessity is the mother of invention, right? That's the same. And I believe that, right? I believe that was my circumstance in the sense where I left the Navy, did not have a job necessarily lined up, nor did I want a corporate job. And thankfully, I personally had invested myself into a mastermind at the time. I think was like 25 or $30,000, and that to me was a lot of money at the time. I didn't have income coming in, and I had debt and all of that. But um, when I made that commitment, my level of commitment shifted when it came to my own personal growth and business development, and it shifted to like, hey, I'm taking my butts on the figure out it's out. So work with you and help you like program. By the way, he had a business that had been established in the sense where they were generating leads. They had clients, so it wasn't from scratch, right? But they did not have a back-end mentorship program yet, $1,000. So I said, hey, send me your leads and I'll figure it out for you. All right. So how do we do that, right? Because that's the question. How do you go about doing sales? First and
Mhm.
foremost, learning the skill, right? So I went and I invested money to go buy a course on how to sign up high paying coaching clients. And I implemented that right away, right? Repetition is another skill. So yes, I had a formula, I had a process, but at the end of the day, and when I started, I sucked. When I say sucked, I won't say I sucked, but I wasn't effective in the beginning, right? It was like reps, tons of reps, like me personally learning how to do it myself. But after hundreds of repetitions and hundreds of sessions myself, I turned what I was doing into a process, and I started to hire and train other people and bring other people in to do it. So a couple of things inside of that. One, it's learning the skill, which it is its own unique skill. It's its own unique set of everything, right? That beyond marketing, it's like learning, and not just sales, but learning higher ticket sales. And also, if you're selling something like a coaching program, it's an intangible, right? It's more of a ideal. You're selling a future possibility. It's different than selling um, a car or a house, right? Or a vacation. Maybe a vacation similar, but it's not a tangible, right? So learning how to specifically enroll people into uh, a high-end coaching management. So there's a skill in that. So that you asked how do we go about that? It was doing that and then also creating a team and creating a process so that we could do that consistently, repeatedly. Because just doing sales alone, one of the biggest mistakes, I know we want to talk about mistakes in this podcast, that not just in sales, but in business in general, is having a business that depends on overly talented people to do the work, right? Oftentimes, businesses hire a really talented salesperson. It's kind of in their blood. They've been selling candy since they were in grade school, kind of oftentimes the saying goes. But the reality is, if they're not doing it in a way that's a process, that's replicatable, that's has recordings, that has quality assurance, that has feedback. If they're having a good day, then you have a good business. If they're having a bad day, then you have a bad business, and your business depends on that one person. And no one that you bring in can model that, right? No one can copy that, right? There's no business there. They're just a talented person that's doing sales for you. And maybe that's you as the person that's listening to this call. Maybe you're the talented person that you started a business because you're great at sales, but you sucked at other things, and you realize that that when you start your business, that sales is totally separate from running a business, right? It's a different skill set. So learning how to do it, not just in a talented way, but learning how to build a team that can do it in a processed like manner. And that's what allowed us to scale. Honestly, that's what helped us go from uh, one salesperson doing 50 sales calls a month to five salespeople that were each doing 100 sales calls a month and be able to get consistent results over time through that. So that was before we got into events. So I'm just kind of sharing the genesis of how kind of I got into sales and some of the things that mattered. When we got into events, it was simply the client had an annual event they did every year. I think it was 6 years in a row they did it. But they never did it with the sales team. And every year, year over year, they were doing this event in Vegas, which has a huge cost. Mad respect for my mentor taking the risks, $250,000 on the table every single time, just right out the gate. Um, and he was struggling to make money on it. I mean, he would go in the red to host the event, and then after the event, he himself, the host, was following up with his participants to offer them a workshop offer for $5,000 a pop. And it took him, weeks and months after the event to do that. And it literally would take him months to get profitable on the event after the event. So it was a major problem that he had. And I imagine people listening to this can relate to that. If they've hosted an event, they understand that, especially if it's an event in Vegas. And so we came in and brought a team and trained a team in to one, so that the owner, the event leader, didn't have to do all the follow up himself post event, but two, that were in the green at the event, right? We had actual contracts and cash collected and commitments made at the event. We went from the $300,000 event to the just north of $700,000. And then we took all of that, all those lessons learned, continue the process. And then a year later, that $700,000 event became a $2.1 million event with very similar, not the same, but very similar audience. Almost, I mean, it was the same niche. And I would say maybe 20% more people there, maybe 20%. So it wasn't like a much bigger event or a totally different market. And it was a similar event with an improved process. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Steve?
totally. I mean, it's because that's what happens, right? Like you're going to grow, you're going to learn the lessons, and then you're going to iterate and grow on top of them. So let's go back to just talking about your mentor was doing what I've seen so many people do, right? They hold the event, they go in the red, but they're like, I have to do this. They stand up, they do their song and dance, but then there he was calling people up after the event. There's a lot of red flags I see with that. One, should he be the one calling? Two, how does the time frame work as you get farther and farther from the event? What were you able to do when you came in and you just brought people and you said you trained them up? What does that mean? Did you train them specifically for that event? Was it just in sales? Kind of walk me through the process of what you did to transform this.
Yeah, specifically training for the event. And the event brings a whole nother animal of logistics and specific sales process that is specific for events. And I think you know this, Steve. It is a bit more complex. And I oftentimes see that as a barrier for people. They think that they're going to translate what they do over the phone to what they do in an event and think they're going to have the same level of success. And oh my gosh, that's so wrong on so many levels. It's such a beast. In fact, we train and prepare for like every single day for a month leading up to the event. So many nuances, so many small things. A lot of them logistics. A lot of them logistics. When you have 300 people in a room, how do you have a meaningful conversation with the majority of them while they're at the event? And not meaningful as in like hi and bye, nice to meet you. No, but like an actual proper sit down, understand their needs, understand their challenges, give them a proper solution and proposal, set up next steps, secure deposits, secure contracts, schedule follow-ups. It is a machine, man, to be able to do that properly without having all the things drop because you're scheduling people. Can be a scheduling nightmare. Imagine having to manage a schedule of 300 people over the course of 2 days, 3 days, right? That's a big thing.
Well,
And people
that's
don't realize how much goes into that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I know this because I've seen the back end of events, but you have, let's take what you have. Let's go with 200 people over 2 days. That means 100 people per day, 15, 20-minute conversations. You've got to, first off, it's hard. It's like herding cats, right? Because you've got all these people running around. Oh, I don't want to leave right now. I want to hear what he has to say. How do you handle that? Like, if you're starting to see, I hope this conversation is starting to open up your mind to how events work. Yes, they are great sales mechanisms, but it is nowhere near as simple as standing on stage, talking a little bit, and driving people to the back of the room. So let's talk a little bit about what specific training do people need? And then let's talk about maybe some event logistics. Let's start with the specific training because you said that you train for 30 days leading up to the event. Is that for every event that you work, or is that just for your mentor's event?
That particular event, but the events that we are training 30 days per day. We're not training every day necessarily because we recorded things, we create systems, process, protocols. We have rhythms and routines and the way we go about things that doesn't require us to train collectively every single day because we have a process. We train to a process. Um, but you're wondering what kind of training was required for that event.
Well, I
So
think
several, one, there's specific training of like, hey, how do you take an attendee from them walking to the door on day one, how do you create an entire experience for them through day three, where they're leaving with a full commitment and a payment made and a contract signed, and they're excited about the next step in the journey, and they're scheduled for they know what's coming next. They're scheduled for their kickoff call, onboarding call, etc. There's a whole customer journey that needs to be managed, the whole experience. And in fact, that actually begins before the event when they register, right? So there was pre-event. Well, we do this now. We do it at the first event, but we do this now pre-event confirmations. People actually calling people, asking them why they're attending the event, documenting that, ensuring that they're able to attend the entire time, understanding what they would love to get out of the event, what results specifically, in not making assumptions, understanding what their challenges and pain points are right there and then. In the 30 days leading up to the event, not just assuming that they're coming because you know their problem necessarily. So taking all that information and assimilating it, we actually do interviews, like even more in-depth interviews with a cross-section of people. So not only are we confirming people, but now we're interviewing a cross-section of the attendees for another 30, 45 minutes, going even deeper, and then taking all that information and doing a strategic review of that with all the stakeholders, and um, taking that and implementing, integrating that into the messaging, into the training the sales team, et cetera, right? So what does the sales team have to train on? Sales team has to train on not just sales. That's kind of at this point, it's a given. If they're on our team, they're trained and their experience in sales is not something I necessarily need to train people on. But we got to make sure we understand the market that we're training, we're selling in, right? Market data is much more important than sales data, right? Features and benefits, that's a dime a dozen. That's sales 101. In fact, I tend to shy away from that because I find that focusing on that is pretty elementary and can come across as being salesy. But when you can teach people and train to understanding the industry that they're in, understanding the market that they're in, properly give their clientele something of value, because our discovery sessions are intended to be consultative, right? It's not a, hey, let me sit down and tell you about my product. No, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes of really understanding their needs, speaking to the industry, help educating them on the potential pitfalls, a little bit like kind of you and I are doing right now, Steve, with this episode. And and then at the end of that, you know, a bridge, an invitation really for them to apply. I think it's critical that we're inviting them to see if they're a fit, right? Not like, hey, I'm going to pitch you. And it's all permission based too. Say, hey, at the end of this 20-minute session, I'm going to ask you what you found most helpful and valuable. And at that point, if it makes sense, I'll extend an invitation for you to apply for our mentorship program that may help you achieve your outcomes. Is that fair? And then when we get to that 20-minute mark, guess what? We actually ask them, what did you find most valuable in our time together so far? Say, hey, there's a program specifically designed to help you overcome this particular obstacle and achieve the result that you're looking for. Would you like for me to discuss that with you right now? You know, it's permission based, right? It's really critical. And if they say yes, then at that point we invite them, we give them a high level review, we invite them to secure a deposit that's zero risk for them, and then fill out an application and then schedule their actual, their next step in the process, which is more of the intake, going over the features and the benefits in more in depth, and handling any questions, concerns, objections, collecting money, signing contracts that are moving forward, right? So these are just some of the things that we're training them on, right? And everything in the process, understanding all the logistics that go between, everything from how do you greet somebody, how do you read their body language, how do you manage your time when you have 20 people coming to your table over the course of 1 or 2 days. How do you work together with the concierge, with the other sales team members? How do you communicate where people are at? How do you hand appointments over to be another rep doing the interview, which oftentimes they all nuances that need to be trained, reviewed, role played over and over and over again. And even when we get to an event, we'll get there a whole day early and we'll lay everything out, everything, all the collateral, everything. We literally will walk through uh, physically in practice as if clients are walking through. So the goal here is by the time we actually start the event, literally within a couple hours of the beginning of the event, we've already practiced and prepared so well that the first appointments that sit with us, oftentimes within a matter of hours of the event starting, are already securing, are having a great experience, and two, are already securing deposits to apply for the program before the offer's been made, right? And one of the cool things about that is um, it's cool as an event host. Typically, my partners and clients, when I'm able to give them sales project and say, "Hey, man, I know it's only the end of day one or it's lunchtime day two. You haven't made your offer yet, but just so you know, we've already spoken with 50% of the people in the room. We've already secured, X number of deposits, and this is what we have in the pipeline. These are the things we're hearing from people that you need to know about when you come to the front of the room and you present your offer, right? And by the end of that second day, already having cash collected, contract signed, etc. The goal, the dream, the fantasy kind of scenario that I really aim for is when I get to meet with the event host on Monday morning, assuming it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. On Monday morning, get to meet with them over coffee or breakfast or whatever. We get to debrief the event. I get to hand them a suitcase or a folder full of contracts, uh, checks, maybe cash in some cases. And I get to go through line by line everyone that signed up for the program or everyone that we're following up with, exactly where they're at in the conversation, the process. And they get to open up their bank account and they're not wondering, how they're going to pay the hotel bill for the event. They're looking at that and saying, wow, we not only did we pay the bills, but money's in the bank and I can see where the rest of the money's coming. I can see maybe where we may have some holdups. I can do something about it, but I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to go for the next 3 days and pick up the phone and start following up with people. I can maybe consider taking a vacation, right? Especially, how much it takes to put on an event. After an event, it's been not days, not weeks, but months of preparation and promotion and filling for that event. Like what I want most for the event host is to be able to jump on a plane and go to Hawaii or wherever their favorite vacation spot is, maybe Barcelona, and take a few days off, decompress, let the team finish doing that work that you hire them to do. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're laying out a great framework for people. Like at an event, you need to have conversations with people. You're asking people first off to usually invest 25 to $50,000 into their future. It's either a 6 month or a year long commitment. It's a big commitment for people. And if you're listening to this and you're like, but hey, Rudy, if you have conversations with people before the pitch, isn't that going to ruin it? If it's done correctly, it's a conversation, it's not a pitch. And even the people that don't buy right then, they're now much more open to it as the offer is made from stage. There's so many things that I like here. Rudy, maybe we can talk about some of the mistakes that you see event hosts make. I see them all the time. I either see people not have a sales team or they think that a coach from their team might be able to do sales and have the conversations. Can we highlight some of the mistakes that you see people make?
Yeah, we'll start with that one. And then I have a couple. I have one big one. I think it's the biggest one, and I have a great case study to back it up from Harvard Business Review. But let me speak to that one. Who, not having people in the room, the back of the room, or um, the ones they have, grabbing a coach and slotting them over to do the sales for them. So let me reference. I'm going to reference the Harvard Review. So there's a study that was done by the Harvard Business Review. You can look this up. It was called the lifetime value of online leads. Granted, it was leads that are generated online. It's not referring to leads at an event necessarily, but I think the principle holds and definitely holds true for virtual events because they are online. But the point is that Harvard, when it did a study, they interviewed, it was two studies that were done in conjunction, but effectively 42 US-based companies, cross-section of B2B, B2C. And they determined two things. One, they figured out what percentage of the companies responded to the lead inquiries, how quickly they responded. And then the other study was based on how quickly they responded, what was the result of that effectively, right? So what they found is the vast majority of companies um, either did not respond at all or took more than 3 days to respond, the vast majority, okay? The result of that is they found that the companies that could respond quickly, ideally, it's like 5 minutes. That's like the magic number, all right? But I'd say between 5 minutes and an hour, those companies that people that responded within an hour, they were converting 7 times higher than people that waited more than an hour effectively. Right. And in this case, I want to be really clear here. When they said conversion, they were referring to having a meaningful conversation with the decision maker, which is the critical step in the conversion. Having more meaningful conversations with decision makers, you're going to have more sales. Right. And then it kind of got pretty interesting on the back end, like companies that waited 72 hours or longer, um, this just started to drop off significantly. I think in one case it was like 60 times drop off, right? So how does this apply to events, right? Let me translate that, and then I'm going to answer your question to connect that together, Steve. The way that applies to events is when people attend a live event, they're in a container, they're in a state, especially if it's in person, they've invested in the flight, the hotel, the time. They're there, they're in the room. They have interest, you know, the moment you make the offer, they have interest. Every single hour that goes by after your event, every single hour, every single day that goes by, the law of diminishing intent states that they're going to lose interest in what you gave them, what you offered them. And people go from one event to the next, even the following weekend or the next day, right? Or they go back to work or whatever that could be. And so it becomes so critical to be able to have those meaningful conversations while they're in that state, while they're in the container of the event. So not doing that is probably the most critical mistake. So to answer your question, Steve, about that should answer the question as to, what's one of the mistakes people not having one? Well, even if you're the one doing the calls, if you're doing them after the event, you're losing people, right? If you have people on your staff, like a coach, and you put them in sales, one, maybe they have sales aptitude. I don't know. I can't tell you, but my experience has been oftentimes it's not the case. I would recommend if you're going to do that, have whoever you're going to put in the seat at a minimum take a free disc profile or a paid one and look at their D and their I in the disc assessment. To have someone who's in their nature to do sales and do sales well, you're going to want somebody that's higher on the I and the D than the S and the C. Okay, so that's a first like line of defense from messing up on the placement. Gosh, by the way, according to Dr. Bradley Smart, the creator of the top grading hiring process, which is the number one hiring process known to, business, the number one mistake or the cost of putting the wrong salesperson on your staff can be 7 times what you pay them annually. And that's opportunity cost. That's the fact that they may damage your reputation. There could be a variety of things that go into that. But that looking at that alone is critical, right? Looking at who am I putting in the seat? If I'm going to have someone, who am I going to put in the seat and doing it properly? And then making sure you're choosing someone with the right nature. And then ideally, someone that has experience or that has training or combination thereof. It's so often, man, that people put volunteers in the back of the room and it's great. They're well intended and all that, and they'll collect orders, but you're leaving a ton of money on the table, a ton of opportunity. And then oftentimes the reason people don't do it is one, they just don't know better, or two, they don't want to pay a commission. Goodness gracious, you get what you pay for, right? If you're converting at say 5% or even 10%, which I think is very high for a $25,000 or $50,000 offer at an event. And I know this because I look at numbers. I am a mad scientist when it comes to event data. I have thousands of data points over hundreds of events in the last 10 years. I know data at events better than just about anyone. I can say that with absolute certainty because it's what I study. I was an engineer by undergrad. I collect data. I'm an engineer. I study it. And if someone's converting at 5 or 10% and they're afraid to pay a 10 or 15 or 20% commission, but if they can increase their conversions by double or even triple that, then it's a no-brainer. In fact, I have a little chart. If somebody's listening to this, they reach out, I can give it to you. You can say, hey, based on your margins of your offer, what does sales need to be at in order for you to stay profitable, right? And you can see that it's actually very easy, even if you're paying a 10 or 15 or 20% commission, to increase your conversions 5%, 10%, and all of a sudden you're making way more profit, even if you are paying that commission. Steve, I'm going on a little bit of a riff here, but there's so much I can chat on this specific topic. So many common mistakes, so many misunderstandings. There's so many subtleties that go into not just having people in the back of the room, but putting the right people in the back of the room and having the right process to follow and the right quality assurance and making sure here's the thing, people, and this is one of the most common fears that event leaders have when it comes to putting a sales team. And at least the ones I work with, oftentimes they care more about not damaging their brand or their reputation than they care about the money. They're afraid that, hey, if I put some sleazy salespeople in the back of the room, it's going to damage my reputation. And you're right, it could.
Sure.
And there's a way to go about it so it doesn't, right? And it's not just purely, hey, picking the right people, but no, you can actually put quality assurance in place, right? There's a way to frame things. You can put NPS scores in place so that you're getting a real-time feedback if somebody's having an experience that isn't optimal. The way NPS scores for people who are hearing this for maybe the first time, it's a quick survey. It's 1 to 10. How likely do you refer this experience to a friend or family member, or an appointment with the sales rep to a friend or family member? If it's less than an 8, they're going to ask why. If it's less than a 6, it's a detractor. It's a red flag. You got to see what's going on. But that way, when you have the feedback system in place and somebody comes to you and say, hey, I feel like I was sold to, you can see, okay, is this a real thing? Is this happening with a lot of people, or is it maybe just one person who gets triggered by sales, which happens at every event? There's all sorts of personalities at events. I tell clients, hey, listen, you are going to have people to say, hey, I felt like I was sold to, because they were being sold to. They are being sold to. They're at this event. right? And there's just a percentage of personalities, and Steve, I know you know this from your experience too, that they're going to say that, but know that it's normal, but you can monitor it and you can manage it and you can, and especially now with technology, with AI, like there's no reason why when you do sales back to the room, it can't all be recorded. Zoom actually has a button now on your app. You can push the button and record the conversation and transcribe it and put it into it and all that. Again, quality assurance. Quality assurance, I think, is one of the most critical pieces and event, especially when it comes to having someone else do the sales for you so you actually know what's going on. All right, I'm getting a bit passionate here about this, Steve. I'm gonna pull back on the reins a little bit here because I know we got maybe maybe low on time here. I'm not sure.
You're doing okay. I mean, it is good that you're passionate about that. If you're listening to this, I think you definitely hit a nerve. I think people want to sell at events, but more importantly, they want people to feel like they had a great event. The number one fear in the world is public speaking. Even people that love
Yeah.
being on stage don't want to feel like I've had event hosts ask me if I'll do the pitch because they don't want to be seen as the person selling. And what I stress is the same thing you're stressing, and that is if it is done correctly, sales is a service. You put a lot of time and effort into having not only the correct frameworks and training your people well, but also making it about having a conversation with them, not about, hey, you need to buy this. This is really important for you. And I think that's something that can't be overstated. Like doing this well makes the event better for all of the guests there and helps you make more money. Um, I really appreciate the attitude that you take and the way that you set things up. I think that is something that makes a huge difference. The other thing that you touched on, and I'm going to throw the ball back to you on this one, but if you're worried about paying a commission to a salesperson, Rudy and his team, I guarantee you, if you make one extra sale, you've probably paid for their team and their services on a 200-person event. Just think about that and let that set in. I'll let you talk a little bit about just how you work with clients. If you're interested in this, we are linking Rudy's website as well as his podcast down below. You can reach out to him. I think what Rudy does offers a much needed piece to anyone holding an event. If you can just talk a little bit about how you work with clients and the outcomes that you get people and what that would cost them.
Yeah, Steve. The short answer is it depends. And it's not so much that it depends on the pricing, because my pricing tends to be in a similar range for most clients. Depends on the client. To be honest with you, Steve, I am very select with the people that I work with, because the one thing that I value most is my reputation as well as the reputation of my clients. And for that reason, not only do I interview the clients before taking them on, and not just interview the clients, but assess their offers, assess their, I interview some of their customers as well. I really need to know that we're making a meaningful difference with the clients' programs and their services. And there's not just somebody who wants to sling some 10K program or 50K program and try to make a quick buck. So yeah, I'm very selective as to who I work with. And if we end up working together, what that normally looks like is an initial diagnostic process for me to go under the hood and make sure I know your business and your offerings as well as you do, like that you feel that I have my finger on the pulse of your business and your offerings. Um, but then also that we can strategically go into this with knowing what the opportunity at hand is, right? There's no two events that are the same. There's no two offers and there's no two businesses that are the same. Yes, there's a range. There's a range of service, and I always want to make sure that it's a win-win-win and that everyone's excited. But there's no cookie cutter solution. If somebody comes to you and says, I have a cookie cutter solution for you, um, and they quickly jump to work with you, I would be cautious. It probably means that they're new to the game. Probably means that they're just excited. They want to get some experience. But just know that I'm a big believer in measure cut twice, cut once. And if you want to have a conversation about what it looks like to work together, then come over. Well, first follow our podcast, which is High Profitential. It's right here, somewhere near this episode, where we interview other event experts and capture their best practice when it comes to filming their events as well as running events. But you can also come to our website, thevirtualeventsalesteam.com. You can schedule a 15-minute consult with myself with a little chat to see if we're a fit for each other. And then for there, if it looks like we're going to be a fit, then we'll have more time together. So again, you can go to our website, virtualeventsalesteam.com, to schedule a consult, or if you just want to follow me and learn more about what we do and some of the people that we've worked with. We have over 100 people on our podcast at this point. Majority of them have been clients of in some way, shape, or form. You can kind of get a sense for the caliber of the people that we work with. And don't worry if you're not at that caliber yet. I would still love to help you. I'm still happy to give you a 15-minute consultation, point you in the right direction, point you to a resource. I know Steve's the same way. Both of us here are very source-oriented people. We believe investing in people, even if you're not at a place where you're ready yet for our services. We're gonna point you in the right direction. How you know you're ready to work with me is you're someone who's done events before. Um, you consistently get 50 people, 50 paying clients or more at your events. You have a proven program that you've already sold and you have clients for, and you're just looking for help with the problem of capacity and optimizing the results at your event. Steve, back over to you, sir.
That's awesome. I mean, I, I will tell you the reason I brought Rudy on. I think he knows his craft inside and out, and I think it's something that's desperately needed for people holding events. I've seen so many people put on a great event, but then miss out on at least half of the sales that were in the room because they didn't have a proper sales team or they didn't have a sales team at all. So if you're thinking about holding an event, or if you're holding events currently and you want to make sure that you maximize sales and the customer experience. You've heard Rudy talk about customer journey as well as how he cares for the people when he's having conversations. Visit the links down below. Rudy, I want to say thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us. I know you're traveling, but you made time for this podcast. Just want to say thanks for being here with us.
I appreciate the opportunity, Steve, to be with you and your audience today. Thank you.
Dude, totally my pleasure. To everybody else out there, we'll see you next time on Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence from the Stage. Have an awesome weekend.